Thank you. I'm John. John Bud. Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Jeff Mills with Atkins.
Lee Moore.
Jeff Bud.
Nice to meet you, Buzz. I know a Buzz, what pretty Buzz is. You know what that is? You see, man, you're retired. He retired tomorrow.
Oh, God.
After 20-something years.
Yeah. Oh, God. You must have been really good. And very patient.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get started.
Do we need to speak in the microphone for record purposes?
Yeah, I believe so.
And they can hear you.
So first of all, welcome to those of you that attended today. The purpose of the meeting is to go over a project for a multi-use path reconstruction / realignment for the bike path between CR 83 and 283. My name is Josh Irvin, and I'm from the Walton County Tourist Development Council. Here present we have John Fielding and Jeff Helms from Atkins, who is our engineer of record, and also over here we have Stacy Enfinger taking the minutes and making sure that we're all in line. So I'm going to basically just go over the format for the public workshop, very informal. We're just kind of here to go over the project, make sure everybody understands what we're doing and the expectations that we have for the public with regard to the construction of the project. At the end, we'll take public comments in the event that you have them. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Fielding.
All right, thank you, Josh. Well, thank you guys for showing up. We appreciate you being here to provide some input on this and some discussion. First of all, we'll just talk about sort of the limits of the project. Obviously, this is from 83 Old Blue Mountain area to 283 Defuniak Street. What we're doing is a complete replacement of the multi-use path, the Timbucci Trail. Today, it's 8 feet wide, which is substandard according to today's standards. The newest standard is at least 10 feet wide, something that's been requested in this area, and that's what we're planning to do. There's some other things along the way. You'll see in the picture here. There's some. I'm sorry? Okay. So there's presently some issues out there as far as slopes go. You'll see the trail duck down significantly below the level of County Road 38 in some areas, and that's creating some issues with drainage and erosion, as well as some of the signage is old. You can see it's fading, so along the way we'll be able to replace that. Also, you'll notice there's no pavement markings on the trail, something that's more common these days when you have two-way traffic is to provide a center stripe for safety purposes, and so that's something we're evaluating as well. With that, some of the proposed design, obviously one of the key things and the main purpose of the project is to widen the path out to 10 feet. We feel that accommodates two-way traffic a little better. As I mentioned, it's the new minimum standard for a multi-use path, and we really feel it's a safety issue, provides people areas to better move in both directions without interacting as much, without having to use the grass area. Additionally, as I mentioned, some of that drainage that just kind of tears up the side slopes right now, what we're planning to do is add some swale areas where drainage water can collect and run off, and that we can get that in a cleaner system out to its ultimate outfall in these coastal dune lakes, and provide some areas where it's been retained and detained and allowed sediment to sort of spill out. Like I mentioned, we plan to add markings to the path to make sure that the signage is up to date, it's looking fresh and clean. Another key thing that we like to point out on this is we're designing this path so that it doesn't impact anybody's private property. We're keeping this all within the right-of-way of County Road 38 that's already owned. On the second typical section, there are some areas in order to not impact private property where we are having to keep the trail kind of close to the road like it is today. That's to protect those environmentally sensitive areas. There's a lot of wetlands along here, a lot of substantial trees that are historic that we don't want to touch. We want to maintain those really nice environmental features that make this a beautiful place to come and relax. In these areas, we're adding some inlets and underground pipe systems to be able to take on that water that's coming off, and like I said, to be able to hopefully get some of that sediment out of it before we pass it on to those coastal dune lakes. Also in this project area, we're adding a couple rest areas in places that we think are really nice to look at. Alligator Lake is one of them. We feel has a really great overlook, provide people a place to stop and enjoy the scenery. Same thing around the sanctuary Redfish area, where we're trying to give people a place to kind of take a pause, take a break on the trail. This is about a 2-mile stretch in here, and some people do like to stop and poke around. Driveways on the project, I'm sure everybody's probably interested in that. There's a lot of unique and special driveways out here, brick pavers, things like that. One of the keys is where our intent is that we will match the existing pavers that are on these driveways so that it will look uniform, that it will look like it does today. One thing that we will be changing is that where the trail goes through driveways, and you can see Sanctuary at Redfish is an example of this, where you'll see the brick pavers as part of the trail. That will be replaced with asphalt with some concrete curb. We feel that better delineates the trail for safety. It lets drivers know that this is a major trail crossing area, which some people that are tourists may not be aware of. Obviously we're all pretty cognizant of that. We know how heavily it's used, but someone who's here from another area probably isn't. That's not at the forefront of their mind. So having that difference in materials kind of alerts them that, hey, expect pedestrians. Also, we're adding crosswalks at key locations. A lot of places right now where the trail goes, there's no crosswalk at all across the side roads. So we'll be adding what we call a high emphasis crossing, something that really brings your attention to the fact that a trail is coming through this location, somewhere where asphalt is crossing asphalt, and it's not necessarily easy to see where the trail goes. So like I said, updating the pavement markings we feel is a strong safety benefit as we're at this process. Something you might have seen in the one of the first pictures from the existing conditions is how much the trail does go below the level of County Road 30A in certain areas. Where that happens, we plan to raise the trail up so that it's more at the level of the road, so that people are more visible, so that drainage isn't running off nearly as fast. This does mean that in some areas what we call the vertical profile of the trail will be raised significantly. This does mean that in a couple locations we'll have to have retaining walls. And most notably, this would be around the Sanctuary Redfish area. So you'll see what we call a keystone wall, the MSE wall. If you've been out at Sanctuary Redfish, you've seen this on their own property in and of itself. Something that this also gives us a chance to do is to kind of create that scenic overlook, though. So what we're really trying to do is, use some earth tones that the TDC has developed in their public space guidelines, use earth tones, use cedar railings, things that look natural to the environment that really kind of enhance the beauty of the area. So in this one particular area, which is at Sanctuary at Redfish, we expect that in one particular spot there will be a wall that's about 8 feet high. So it'll be pretty significant, but the trail is significantly below the road right now, and it is creating a big maintenance and erosion issue. So we're hoping to be able to correct that, and at the same time provide something that has some natural beauty to it. Within the project limits, there's currently 4 bridges. There's Big Redfish Lake, Little Redfish Lake, Alligator Lake, and then there's a small bridge near County Road 283 that crosses a culvert. The bridge nearest 283 on the eastern limits of the project will be replaced. That will be, or sorry, not replaced, it will be removed, and the culvert will be extended so that the trail is continuous through that and that there's no longer a bridge there. It will look like the rest of the trail system. At Big Redfish Lake, the wooden approaches to the steel structure will be widened out to 10 feet from their existing 8 feet. Currently, the plan is that the steel structure will remain just like it is today. Obviously, it's a very expensive endeavor to replace something like that. The service life on that steel structure is still very good, and so they'll wait till the end of that service life to think about replacing something that extensive. So at Big Redfish Lake, like I mentioned, those wooden areas will get widened out to 10 feet, just like the path is. It'll be replaced with a new decking, so it should look very similar to what's been done at Western Lake at this time. Some recent developments at Alligator Lake and Little Redfish Lake. Obviously we're all aware of what happened at Alligator Lake with the beavers and the failure of the culvert. Public Works is currently considering replacing both of those locations with the road bridge system itself. So there will be some further coordination going forward as to what exactly happens with the trail bridge in that area, because there's a good chance that the crossings for County Road 30 itself become bigger. So obviously we want to match that with the trail system. So those areas may be held off until later, unfortunately, to quote unquote fix the trail. But we feel like waiting provides a big benefit, and to make sure that it all gets done at one time so that it's uniform, it's consistent, and that it really matches the area. As far as construction goes, unfortunately the trail is going to be closed while this is built. It'll be advanced signage in either direction of the trail telling you that the trail is closed. The TDC will obviously post information about this on their website for people that are visiting the area, letting them know the limits of the trail closure and how that's being affected. We expect to start construction in the what used to be the off season is now just the reduced peak season in the fall. And it'll probably last anywhere from 4 to 6 months, hopefully finishing in the spring before spring break hits and it gets crazy busy instead of just busy. During that time, access to properties is going to be maintained. So, obviously anybody who's got a house, people that are coming on vacation here, like I like to do from time to time, especially in the off season, when the prices go down, everybody will still be able to get to everything they can today. It will be inconvenient like any construction is, especially for trail users like myself. But we feel like the end result is really going to be something that's of benefit for years to come for this area. Yes, ma'am. No, you're fine. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, thank you. If you have any questions, now's the time.
Shut up. 4 to 6 months, does that mean during that time that certain sections will be closed or the whole thing closed for 6 months?
That will be determined on a case-by-case basis as far as the contractor goes. There's good potential that you could see limited closures between, say, 83 and Big Redfish, and then sort of segmental approaches to it. We would probably encourage the contractor to do that. It would, be less impact. That's definitely, you bring up a really great point, and that'd be a very good thing to write down on a comment form so that we have a record of it as well.
Is there no way to just make it a more narrow path during that time, divert just like you would a road?
It depends. In this instance, we're completely replacing the path. You see some areas where the asphalt is failing, so it's a really good indication that what needs to happen is for that entire path to be completely removed and to be reworked so that it doesn't become a maintenance issue in the future with the cracking and the rutting that we see out there today. So unfortunately, there's not a lot of opportunity to keep the existing path open while we rebuild it. There are always techniques out there to provide alternative, routes for people to walk around. That can become extremely expensive, though, because you start to build a path in 2 stages, and essentially you've constructed the job twice. So that's not something I don't think that we're currently considering if it can be avoided. But
I do like your idea of segmenting the project.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sections and get it done. Also, that we're going to be talking with Josh and Brian, folks at the TDC. How can we incentivize it maybe a little bit? Encourage the contractor to finish early, maybe. Exactly.
Absolutely.
And we do that on a lot of projects. The DOT does a prorating schedule of dollars depending on the size. This is a big deal for things, so we'll have that discussion with Josh and Brian and folks and see if they want to put a incentive, disincentive. I like having incentive and disincentive, so you got the front end and the back end.
Yeah, and we always have the disincentive in there to not go over contract
you
time.
always have a disincentive on damages if they go, if it's $500, $1,000, $1,500 a day. Those are the kind of things we need to put in the upfront contract and make it clear during the pre-bid meetings when we get them. And on this particular thing, we need to have a mandatory pre-bid meeting. So we get the contractors in the room. I'd like to have that.
We will.
That's my recommendation. So
Absolutely.
You get the contractors over face to face, you eyeball them and say, guys, this is part of our economy. We're going to have this much liquidated damages on the back end. We will get an incentive. We expect it to be done by this date. Things like that.
One of the good things too is, because we're rebuilding a multi-use trail, when we shut down the trail, it allows the contractor to work quickly, because, they're not having to shift and build like you do with the roadway. So we do expect the construction to be much more quick and efficient than you would see in traditional road construction.
Will there be anything published that shows where the bike path is going to be and where the roads will be crossing and that kind of thing?
Absolutely. So what we've brought today is an exhibit of the entire project limits, as we're planning on them right now. So, obviously I'd be happy to sit here and walk through the project with you.
We've got a big mess. I live at Brayton.
Okay.
And, we have a big mess of confusion going on. It might not be finished, and maybe that's why.
Sure.
But I bike several times a week. So,
Mhm.
I hope that as you do these kind of things, that you'll bring bikers in just like this. I'm still confused about the whole bridge on the north side of 38 versus.
In this area, you'll see it all on the south side. I'm a road biker myself.
Yeah. Well, I'm
I'll-
a bike path
I was
biker.
gonna say-
I'm the one that's actually on the bike path.
I try to use the bike path in this area as much as possible. I do find myself in certain areas jumping in the road real fast to avoid having to cross it over. In this segment of the project, it all stays on the south side. You know, we're not crossing the road.
Bridge, now, and
Mhm.
the section that I both walk in right on is between Brayton Beach and Watercolor. So the new bridge, which I'm thrilled.
Sure.
That you built on the south side, but hey, what can you say?
Right.
But to cross over where the crossover currently is, there's just no way. I mean, it's 40 miles an hour there.
That's not Watercolor.
Correct.
Yeah, there's just no way. I mean, we'll have somebody killed. Really, we'll have somebody killed. I'm just, as an adult that's very familiar with it,
Sure.
it will be
We use
dangerous.
that Watercolor.
Sure.
So to think about a 12-year-old, it just, you're gonna have a stop sign.
Yeah, and like I said, we try to reduce, you know, obviously, you know, I personally was not involved in the design of the segment you're talking about. We try as much as possible to keep it on one side of the road so that you're not having these conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians, especially in an area where, as you mentioned, you know, it is a fairly high speed out there. Like I said, as it pertains to this particular project, you know, that's east of where this project is, you know, obviously. So there's nothing going on in this project that will change what you're talking about.
Well, do y'all have the knowledge, anybody in the room, to tell me what's gonna happen right there at Brayton? I mean, we've got literally a bunch of parking put in,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
pretty pavers, and then a ton of asphalt thrown in on the opposite side, and the stop sign's too far back, and, I mean, you just don't even know where you're supposed to cross as a biker. And then, to have to go down the south side of 38 and right before a bridge where everybody's going at least 40 miles an hour, because that's the speed limit. And everybody, including the locals, are looking at the sites.
It's 25 right there.
It's 40 right there.
I think I can maybe help you sleep a little better tonight. So here's what's going to happen with that particular project. The path is going to shift to the north side of the road, so it'll be adjacent to the right-of-way parking
All the way
on
down.
38, all the way down. Correct. Right now, it's just temporary until they can get the bike path on the north side of the road. They had requested permission from the state to be able to basically backfill on the property. They were denied that request, and so that kind of made the project a little bit more difficult with utility relocation. I think they may have since worked through that permitting process, and we'll hopefully be able to do what they had originally planned. But regardless, the path is going to go on the north side of 38 there at Grayton, and will continue until you get to Watercolor, where it will shift back to the south.
Any idea when? Because I just really, if we have to go through the summer,
Right.
you'll have to put a stop sign there. Maybe we should
Sure.
know that.
They are, unfortunately, I do not have an actual completion date with me. I can certainly provide you with my contact information. We can correspond via email, and I will get that for you. Okay.
I'm Janet.
Okay.
Can we get a stop sign in the interim until that happens? Because really, if you're a biker, you'll see that's just,
Right.
if it is 25, it's because it's 25 right here and 40 right there. I mean,
Sure.
because I look and you can see the 40 mile an hour.
Well, you know, to me, it's more, the way it is right now, it's not exactly real safe anyway.
Oh, gosh, no.
I mean, at least it's an improvement, so,
But
I
you
mean,
want kids to cross over that road right there where.
So your concern is the interim, while it's still on the south side, you know, and having to cross.
I think it was similar to what we talked about a little while ago. It was an effort to keep the path open. And so the alternative is to shut down the path completely while construction, continues. And so I guess it's a balance to try to make it safe, but at the same time understanding that there may be some issues that we have to work through in the interim.
in most places, they have this thing called, if somebody's in a crosswalk, you long to stop there.
Sure.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right.
These yuppies around here, they can't, they're on vacation, my mom and dad, these yuppies, they got little bit of money, they ain't stopping.
Right.
Technically, it is the state law, but you find few people know that.
I'm not even fixed, and the Popos don't.
But I mean, they're also, look, even I cross it 5 times a day, and even I am looking at the beautiful lake.
Sure.
And then, ooh, there's a crossover.
Sure.
So, if I'm a tourist that doesn't even know the crossover's there,
Right.
so I think until we do, we have to put a stop sign.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some interim signs or something that could be considered at that location until the trail's moved.
Sure.
Because we're gonna be basically, we're in summer already.
Right. I will definitely, like I said, get your comments over to Public Works. They're actually managing that project and see what we can do. You know, like John said, maybe it's signage. We have some variable messaging signage that we can put
It's
out
gonna
there.
have to be a stop sign.
Um,
You know, there's so many
Sure.
signs, you know, and everybody just kind of
Right.
ignores signs.
Yeah, with as busy as that trail gets, you know, it's probably worth.
A child, I
It's
think.
definitely a busy trail.
Oh yeah, especially during the summer, it's constant.
Use of this trail.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, I designed the Black Order Heritage Trail over in San Jose County and others. I really, this well used. Now, we designed that one at 12 foot wide because it was a rails and trails. This is a well used trail. I'm really glad it's being widened to 10 feet because that allows the bikers more safety.
Yeah, I was really kind of hoping that it would be maintained on both sides so that.
Oh, I would agree. I was just really disappointed to learn that you're taking out the south, and I know this is not this project, this is the other one, but taking out that path. We need more and more and more paths, not, you know, the same amount
The thing
here.
that would solve it would be getting paths on both sides. I mean, I ride my
That's
bike,
where we
I
need to
ride my
go.
bike on both sides of I mean, I ride my bike on the bike path.
Sure.
The only time I like to ride it on 38 is like at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
Like that, when they know.
Sure.
And it really is.
And you still, you know, your show.
And it's still, and when I see cars coming, I get out of the road.
Oh yeah.
So, but it kind of, in this, I don't mean to get off this particular project right now.
You're good.
For you, Josh, is that, you know, if we could, at somewhere down some of the feeder roads that even were expanded,
Mhm.
where you had some kind of bike path on those.
Sure.
I mean, it's, it would make them more attractive,
Sure.
it'd be easier for people to use. I was in Fairhope, Alabama, a couple of weeks ago, and they actually had some expanded bike lanes on 98. Now, you gotta think about this, you know, Alabama's beating us in infrastructure. Now, it's one thing to lose to Alabama in football, but we don't wanna lose to Alabama in infrastructure. So, I mean, it's just something that, I think more and more people,
We're losing to Panama City Beach.
you know, and it's, but I'm trying, was just trying to be,
Sure.
but I know that's not beyond, this project, I think, is a really grand idea.
Yep.
I live in Blue Mountain, so,
Sure.
and it needs improving, and I'm glad that y'all are doing it here. But it just is, and I like the idea of the incentives on the front end and the back end. I just really want to applaud, PDC for, going forward with it.
Okay.
And,
Well, let me just say this, I mean, that's why these public workshops are so important, is to get your public comments, at the early stages, so that we can incorporate those, obviously, in the design, and, to sit around and say, you know what, we didn't necessarily think about that, let's go back and think about that and see the effects it's gonna have on this project. So, I'm glad that you all attended,
Well, wait,
and,
I'm not finished.
okay.
Heaven forbid, trash cans.
Mhm.
Boy, do we need trash cans. When I'm not biking, I am picking up trash.
Right, sure.
Mhm.
And I take my Publix trash bags, and they are so full from Brayton to the First Bridge that I can't even fit any more trash in them.
Right,
And, surely
sure.
people would pick up more trash if there were trash cans along the way, but at least I could open my bags, empty my bags and then continue picking up, but there's that much trash.
So there will be trash cans included in this project at the rest areas.
Not many now.
Right, and they'll only be at the rest areas, so, that
That's not enough.
one spot near Alligator Lake and the one spot near Sanctuary is how they're planned. I'm sure we could.
One at least every half mile.
Right.
Because people, honestly, if you only saw what I pick up,
Oh, I know exactly what you mean.
yeah, and there's nobody to pick it up unless it's just somebody
You
like
saying
me.
these bikers are just really messy.
No, honestly, I could give you a list of exactly what I pick up and who I'm pretty sure.
Cigarette
does it.
runs.
I will tell you this, we do have a contract right now, or actually, we're out of contract, we're in the process of renewing that contract, and part of that contract is a weekly trash removal. And so, as we all know, they can go on Monday and pick up all the trash, and then Tuesday morning, right back where we started. So it's an ongoing thing, but I do agree.
Now, you're talking about trash removal from a trash can.
I'm talking about from the actual multi-use path in the right-of-way adjoining 38. So it's part of their weekly duty is to that trail.
They're really not doing it. Have you ever even seen them do it?
I have actually. I've actually been on.
They're definitely
I
not.
ride the bike path
Right.
from this body did, I don't really, I mean, it's, you see something that's on, I mean, it's not a myth. I mean, it's not, I mean, I like that idea of having trash cans.
Right.
I pick up between Brayton and Watercolor on the south side, and that's the only reason it is not third world country.
Sure.
I'm telling you, I sent pictures of Seagrove
Mhm.
to Tony,
Right.
who I think got that section cleaned up, but we're talking condom boxes and trash that had been there, some of it for months, because you could tell because it's degraded.
Right.
And I look at the other side of the road, I've got my little dog, so I can't cross over.
Mhm.
And it's been there for so long. I mean, they are definitely, other than prisoners 2 or 3 times a year, nobody is picking up trash on the side of the road.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, I will look into that. I will tell you, this new contracts will also include, hopefully anyway, the right-of-way on the opposite side of the multi-use path. So Public Works has requested that we get pricing for that. So that is part of this scope for the project. So hopefully that will, help combat some of that. But I'll definitely look into that. I know, as Lee pointed out, we have discussed that at Destination Improvement Committee about adding some additional bag holders, trash cans, whatever you
And
like to
it
call them.
really needs to be like once, every half mile.
Yeah, sure. That's a
Because
great idea.
otherwise, people just, even good people step over it because they're not gonna carry it. Somebody
Sure.
might reach down and pick up a bottle or a can or whatever.
I'm sure we could consider something like that. It wouldn't be difficult to
No.
include receptacles. We already have a couple.
Well, the Destination Improvement Committee has been looking at what they need to look like. So
Right.
be sure we
Yeah.
Sure.
get
And
on
that's
it.
the
There's a
thing.
guideline.
Yeah, exactly.
Guidelines.
Yeah.
We've got
Yeah,
these
you want it to kind
guidelines.
of disappear.
Yeah,
You don't want it to be bright yellow.
Oh yeah. We try to use, like I said, we try to use natural colors and like cedar. If you've seen what we're currently proposing, those trash cans that have the cedar, cedar slatted boards around them, so that it doesn't, it's not just some plastic or metal
Yeah, I
piece.
thought it would look very natural to
Sure.
the environment and be unobtrusive, but it's just, there's none there now.
Absolutely.
Any other comments on the project?
Can y'all tell me what's gonna happen right there at Brayton, because I got a bunch of people I'm reporting back to.
So when the project is completed, that path will shift to the northern side, adjacent to the new right-of-way parking, and will
So
continue
is
along.
the path gonna be on the road side of the parking or on the other side of the parking?
It'll be on the right-of-way parking side, so it'll be on the north side of 38 is where the path will be.
But
Behind the
you know how
parking?
There's all that new parking there,
Yes, it'll be adjacent to that parking.
so.
North of it.
North of it, correct,
So
yes.
here's the cars that will go around like this.
Correct,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's-
and it'll run parallel down 38 and obviously across the lake.
uh-huh.
And then we'll shift back over again at Watercolor right before you get to Watercolor proper.
And that stop sign, is it gonna be moved up?
Which stop sign?
There is a stop sign that when they did all the new paving, they moved it back, I think,
Yep.
and what's happening is people stop there and you can't see anything. You're like way behind.
Right.
So then you have to come up and stop again when there's no stop sign. And then that confuses everybody because they're like, okay, that car stopped back there, now it's gotta stop here.
Sure.
And then even bikers trying to get around, they're like, oh, did that car stop? I don't know.
Right.
Because
Right.
it's not even a stop sign anymore.
Sure.
So it's really,
Right, I know that they had designed it to, move that stop or that approach back at each part of the intersection for safety purposes. And I'm not really sure, to be completely honest with you, I don't know enough about that particular aspect of the project to say one way or the other.
well, run down there because it's right here.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about, but I don't understand the project enough to make an educated, guess or to tell you one way or the other what the overall idea or plan behind that was or is. So I'll tell you what I'll do is if I could get you to fill out one of these comment forms, and if you'll list those, I'll be sure to forward those over to Public Works so that any questions I'm unable to answer, they will be able to, hopefully.
Is it gonna start in Drayton or is it gonna start in Blue Mountain?
The actual, this particular project, that's a question that we'll probably have to address at construction. I don't think it really matters either way, to be honest with you. It's just a matter of determining at which point we want to start.
A lot of times we'll have a contract the south side.
Where it is now.
Exactly where it is now.
But, so watercolor and green is way down there.
This way. Yeah, let's turn it around. Let's turn it around this way.
That's all I was wondering.
And that makes this over and over.
That's okay.
I mean, was there a
Right.
meeting
Nor
about,
is it
about
so.
Miami Beach that I just never knew about?
Right, so it would, where it is today in this section, it stays on the south side.
I think this one too. So one time at night, I looked and drove.
But is it,
Land was full, and I turned off my lights, and it's like very clear, only 2 or 3 cars. Sometimes even in the summertime, you won't have any cars.
Yeah.
Lights. Now, the only thing.
Don't quote me on
is
that, that's why.
I don't know enough about, there's some places, so the idea of bike path alongside a road.
If,
is basically the same.
if there are no further public comments, I'm going to go end the meeting and the recording, and then we'll be here to answer any questions you may have that you haven't thought about.